I'm Jay Pitts, a real estate broker, agent, leader, and investor. For the last decade, I've navigated the craziest of real estate markets this country has ever seen, selling over 2,000 homes, moving in and out of markets, always ahead of the curve. And now I'm bringing that perspective to you. This is your resource, and Real Talk About Real Estate starts right now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Resource Real Talk About Louisville Real Estate. I'm Gabe Pruitt.
And I'm Jay Pitts.
Jay, today we're going to talk about what it's like to be Ryan Brown. And our guest today to discuss this with us is the one and only Ryan Brown.
What's up? What's up, man?
I'm glad we have a topic that I'm an expert on.
Yeah, perfect.
What it's like to be Ryan Brown. From the expert, Mr. Ryan Brown. You know, I kind of am at a loss a little bit as to what to talk to Ryan Brown about.
This is interesting because most times I know what we're going to talk about, and then it takes a long time to come up with the title of the episode, and today is the opposite. Today's title is going to be the hashtag Rich Life, for sure.
Rich Life?
With Ryan Brown, but I don't know what we're going to really discuss, so...
There's several key words or phrases that Ryan tends to make the rounds with.
Rich.
Rich is one of them.
It's my favorite one, too.
Famous is the other.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's not the other. There are several others. Give us a few more examples. Rich, famous.
I think what everybody in the office gets me on is I call everybody rich whenever they do something.
Yeah.
Really rich.
Anything successful is rich.
Rich.
Mm-hmm. Anything, and we could also talk about the time I asked Ryan for a referral, to a good contractor, somebody, for like a high-end home, and I was actually
not home.
And I was
You
asking
said,
for myself.
Who would you refer to a high-end client? And I said, who's the client?
Marcy, is everything okay?
I kicked the camera. She was mad at me.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, I think we've got Ryan still on camera. This is going to be a serious episode, I promise. We might joke a little bit longer, but...
Well, speaking of joking, I mean, we're talking about your unique aphorisms and Ryan-isms that we've heard in office. But I think one of the reasons we want to talk to you is because you do have a pretty unique way of running your business, right? You went from working on your own, and now you have a team here at RE/MAX Premier Properties. People that aren't familiar with you, we should probably introduce. Ryan is a team leader here within RE/MAX Premier Properties in our brokerage. How many agents do you have working with you?
Just one.
Yeah.
So a small team.
Yeah. It's a small team. He had one that just went out on his own. But I think more importantly, Gabe, the thing that is unique about Ryan is his business is driven very, very heavily by investors. Would that be a fair assessment?
Very.
And you're an investor yourself, too, which is worth pointing out.
Investor himself. So
which is what drew, I think, the other investors. As marketing that kind of helped me bring in more, and people started to seek me out a little bit when they wanted to get into it. So.
Well, and I don't want to be remiss. I mean, I would be remiss if I reduced him to just investors. Ryan has been in the business for several years. He knows how to do real estate top to bottom, residential real estate transactions, maybe some small commercial. That's not been the majority of our dealings together. But, he does it all. But he's found an interest, I think you could say most aptly, in working on the investor front, renovations being part of it as well. And, he's been able to inspire clients to work with him and allow him the trust to manage their investments and play not just a real estate agent, but in a lot of ways, a general contractor, a partner in some cases, if not all cases, in addition to, renovating and investing for yourself. So the majority of your business, would you say, is in rentals or rehabs?
The rehabs take the majority of the time. Probably the volume-wise would say rentals, because I do more deals because you can run those off pretty quickly. I mean, if an investor is going to buy and then refinance and then use that cash to buy again, we can turn those around a lot quicker than we can buy and spend 4 months renovating and then sell. That might be a 6-month process before they have their cash back ready to do it again. But the ones that are looking for rentals, we can buy. And, if you buy something that's pretty much rent ready, even if you have to do a couple things, usually those minor renovations that need to be done to get something rent ready can be done before the refinance is even ready. And so those turn quickly.
Gotcha.
So he's getting into the BRRRR method, which we'll get into, I'm sure, a little bit. I think it was coined by Bigger Pockets, right? Bigger Pockets podcast?
That's probably a better question for you.
Okay. Well, I believe it was. I believe it was, but
rhetorical.
it doesn't mean that it wasn't something that's been going on for quite some time. It's something that's been given life by Bigger Pockets. And I mean, we had Phil and Mally Wonderlick on the podcast, a few weeks back, and we discussed, fix and flip and their, teamwork, between themselves as a married couple and their role as an investor and how it impacts their real estate business. I don't necessarily want to go like the same direction with this conversation, but I think it's important to recognize the fact that we can sit here and talk about real estate investing and have substantial interest, and the fact that Phil and Mally and people like them, people like yourself, Ryan, can have such a big part of their business attributed to real estate investing is the same phenomenon that allowed Bigger Pockets to be successful. They just happen to be maybe the first ones to give a pretty substantial voice to it. I'm intrigued always at the way different practitioners execute real estate, because this is it's the frontier of American small business is residential real estate. It can literally be gotten into with fairly little invested time or money. Okay, there are really low barriers to entry, which has some unique negative consequence, which we've gotten into in the podcast before. And you can literally be successful in almost infinitely many ways. So, whereas, Phil and Mally are investing for themselves and representing investors, and we even talked with them about, the potential to, partner with clients and how they had clients approach them to renovate for, to the client specification, like you'll see on some of these flipping shows. They had resisted that. Differently, Ryan, you've partnered with several investor clients or client types, and it's allowed you to kind of spread your influence across multiple jobs. How many jobs do you have going right now?
6.
6 jobs. What's the most you've ever had at a time?
6.
Is this it? Yeah.
Are you resistant to go beyond that?
Oh, I tell you, I'm in a situation right now where it's just hard. I'm trying my best to keep everything pretty close together for a couple of reasons. I think it helps me be an expert in an area and what I can do with, a 120-year-old house, and how to get a layout and what finishes people expect. But it also logistically, when everything is within a couple miles of each other, makes it easier.
That's a good point.
One of the big questions that people always ask is how much time does it take, and it isn't necessarily that any given day I'm there for 4 hours, but you need to go every day, because if you don't, a closet's framed in the wrong spot, and things go wrong if you aren't there. And so by having the 6 that we're working on right now are probably within 1.5 miles, 2 miles of each other, and it's easy to drive to one, get out, check and make sure what's going on, make a list of who needs to be called and what needs to be checked on, and then on. And so now I'm in a situation where it's just, if I found a really good deal, then we could come up with some money and try to get it. But
so what you said there kind of leads right into what I was going to ask you next, which is how hands-on are you with your own projects, and how much of it do you delegate to other people? And it sounds like you're pretty present during most of the process.
But he's not swinging the hammer.
Right, but you're...
I have.
Well, I know you have. You put tile down. I've seen you. I mean, I've seen the pictures. He does a really good job of documenting on social media, which I think we're probably going to get into social media presence here, because I think it's a big part of what you do. But yeah, are you swinging the hammers?
I learned my lesson on my very first house that I ever did a flip was a little place, and I tried to do everything myself. I put the roof on myself. It was only a little 900 square foot place. Now I say myself, I did enlist. I used to coach weightlifting at Trinity High School, so I enlisted a couple of kids that just graduated to help me. They had no experience.
You let them carry
They
the
had
bundles.
experience
No,
picking up heavy things and putting them down.
He let them carry the bundles of shingles up the ladder.
No.
Is what he's going to deny that.
But what I learned in that one is that it took me so long, and I was only able to focus on that one thing. I learned my lesson about getting too deep into a project that keeps me from doing anything else. And so now I try to be pretty selective if I do anything. And if I pick a project to do myself, I make sure that no one else is waiting on me.
Yeah.
Well, there's no way to do 6 projects and swing all the hammers, right? I mean, you can't hang the drywall, finish the drywall, lay the tile, refinish the hardwood floors, and put on the roof and expect to do 6 projects at once. You spend, I would guess, 10 minutes on average per day on each job? That's 1 hour to hit all 6 jobs?
Probably. But,
Hour and a half if you talk travel time?
Well, and I may, be talking to different contractors that I use, because I think that aspect of networking, if this is going to be a big aspect of my business in the future, which I expect it to be, hanging out with the contractors and the people doing the work and creating a good rapport with them is probably just as important as having a good rapport with your clients who are consumers, because these guys, I need them to, give me really good prices, but I need them, everybody's busy right now.
Sure.
Everybody's building, so the tile guys are busy, the framers are busy, so I can't just pay more, so I have to get them to like me.
Well, here's
so that
the tricky
when I call
thing,
and
too.
I say, I need this done by this day, they say, all right, we'll come do it.
The other thing that's tricky is when you have contractors that you really like who do a good job and are busy on your own jobs. What do you do when your clients ask you for a recommendation and who can do their job? Like, you're not going to send your guys off the site to go work on a client's house.
I try to do. It's funny that you said that, because I just remembered my friend Tracy is like trying to get me to have some people come frame up her basement on a house I sold them a couple of years ago, and I said, I've got good framers, because she got quoted this price that's just outrageous.
Okay.
And I said, no, don't do that. And I try to do the best that I can, because people will call me all the time and say, hey, I need a plumber, I need an electrician, blah, 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 blah. And everyone is busy, so it is.
You're like, I think they're busy right now, though,
it's
on my project.
It's
Probably
a
3
challenge.
weeks out.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
But that's a value add that you can choose.
And that leads more back to the importance of networking all the time, right? It's important to have multiple contractors that you like, so you're not like stuck with. Because like, what if you have a job and you're one guy who does it isn't able to do it? It's important to know multiple people. So
it absolutely is, but that goes back even to Ryan's point about being on the job every single day, because even good contractors, even good subcontractors left to their own devices will act up, right? So if Ryan creates the impression that he's going to be there every day scrutinizing every single job, then they're more apt to get the job done faster, get it done with better quality. I mean, I don't need to make these points for you. I mean, you can be honest.
You can. Well, the other big thing is you have to really fight the "it's not my job" attitude. If you've seen any of those memes where someone, I saw one where someone left a ladder on the roof, and then the roofers just roofed around the ladder. And it was a joke, but it's that type of stuff to a lesser degree happens all the time.
Yeah.
Because if you tell a tile guy, I want tile all through here, well, he's just going to do what he's been paid to do, or going to be paid to do, and nothing extra.
Sure.
But if you're, and it's perfectly reasonable for, if the job changes, the contractor maybe wants more money or something. But if you aren't there, they're not just going to do it and then tell you it costs more, because you're going to say, oh, well, we didn't agree on that price. And so you just have to be present and watching what's going on. Which that's exciting, and that's the fun. To me, that's the fun aspect of it.
Sure.
Some people are successful with a different model of flipping, in which they will just have a general contractor and they say, this is the budget, go do this house, and then they sell it. To me, the fun part is designing the layout and going there and taking something old that isn't cool and making it really cool.
Yeah.
And so
that and solving the problems that come along with that, because
Absolutely.
every day is
Absolutely.
different.
Absolutely.
Every challenge is unique.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a good laugh out of your experience. Your comment about the roof. It's not my job. I had literally had an electrician tell me one time, the vanity was installed, the granite top was on it, the undermount sink was installed, the plumbing fixtures were in. He's installing an over vanity light, and it was a very small powder room that he couldn't fit a ladder in because of the vanity. So he literally stood on top of the vanity to install the light, had a misstep, stepped in the undermount sink and cracked it in half, and told me it was my fault because the vanity was in the way.
It was in the way of my foot.
I mean, it was in the way of my foot. So let me get this straight. You needed to be able to install your light before the vanity was there, but the light has to be centered on the vanity. Gotcha. You'll never be getting another phone call from me. But no, this is indicative of the investor or general contractor, subcontractor dynamic. It's absolutely true. All right, let's pivot. Let's pivot real quick, because I think just as important as how you do it is how the market sets up for you to do it. So you're in Germantown. A lot of people would have said around the time you started flipping in Germantown that Germantown was over. I had a lot of investors that I used to sell property for in Germantown that have moved out of Germantown. They don't believe that money can be made in the way that they used to make it, or that money can be made at all flipping houses in Germantown. And I think that you've probably proven them wrong. And there's a special point that I think is very relevant to this. They're just not willing to do what you're willing to do in order to earn that profit. So talk to me about how you go above and beyond.
Well, I have started to just favor bigger projects. And so on Caldwell right now, and actually we'll close Ash tomorrow, and that will be another one that is the same type of deal. And we're just tearing the entire roof off the place and build a second level on it, so double the square footage of the house. Because they are definitely right in the standpoint of like a dump down there right now, if you want to call someone's house a dump. But I mean, a dump right now down there. Ash is going to close tomorrow. It costs $110. It's 1,100 and something square feet, and it's a wreck, and it costs $110,000. And so, in order to renovate that, 1,100 square feet, I could make a decent 2-bed, 2-bath, and you could sell that, on Ash, $240, $250. But in order to get there, it needs to be gutted, and then it gets all new electric, all new plumbing, and by the time you spend that money,
margin,
it shrinks down. Well,
which is what they were saying.
Yes,
These are the guys that were buying them for 40 and 50,
right.
that were flipping them, doing less, selling for less, making money, and
then they get priced out of that.
Ryan takes it to a whole nother level, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you say they're a dump, you're right. But your $110,000 dump may not be as bad as some of the $40,000 and $50,000 dumps that got resold. What do you do? Come on, give it to me. You have to tell me, what do you do that no one else does? There's a lot, so tell us.
We're doubling the square footage of the house, and so in order to do that,
additions.
Yeah, so in order to do that, it is a big waiting process because the houses are built so close together. They require side yard setback variances, and so then that is not just applying for a building permit with the city. That is getting the variance, going with planning and zoning, and dealing with all that. And there's kind of a waiting process, and then how many times they want you to change things. And so I think that is the thing that most people aren't willing to do, But now I can have a 2,400 square foot house, and with
all of a sudden your margin's back. Yeah.
The margins are back, and I think that we're getting more and more a market down there for that. For a long time, everyone said, oh, you could sell a 2-bedroom down there because there's cool little bars. But, I took my wife and kids. We went to Logan Street Market for breakfast. And I started looking around, and we got our breakfast. There's a kids' play area up in the, mezzanine is like the fancy word for it, but like balcony.
Rich.
Yeah.
Rich. That's the rich
and
part.
So they're playing up there in the kids' play area, and I'm looking around, and there are people pushing strollers everywhere. Little young families. In Paristown Point, I think there's something like a $30 or $35 million. They're going to have an ice skating rink down there, and so it's not just little bars on every corner that young, single or people without kids want to be there. The money that's being spent in there, anytime the people with the real money, the really rich people that dump millions and millions into something, us little people can sneak in around them and put a little bit of money in. And I think that's what's Paristown Point. I think that's why you can still make money down there, is because it's actually getting more and more. And now there's a different demographic that will like that area.
How did you learn to do that stuff? Was it all on the fly, like you were flipping houses the old way down there, and then you realized you had to change, or did you have somebody who kind of told you, hey, why don't you do this?
I think that we just the very first property that we messed with down there was just small. It was like 800 square feet, and we said, like, how am I, and it went against, we said, like, we can't really sell it. How are we going to do 2 bedrooms in here with 800 square feet, 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms? Because you think, it's important to get an open, like the things you have to have are a real master suite. And so they have their own bathroom and a decent closet.
Guest bed and bath.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have 2, and the other one has to be full. It can't be
half.
2 beds, 2 baths, 0 kitchens.
It's just, and so like it was just out of necessity. The first one was so small, and then I started to look at, and that was a Camelback. So we added like 400 square feet to that. And then when I sat down and started looking at the numbers, I said, it cost me this much to add 400 square feet. I could have just added 800 square feet, and it would only cost this much more.
Yeah.
Your price for materials is pretty linear, But once I've already got guys there tearing a roof off and framing a bunch of stuff up, doing a little bit more to them is not that big a deal. And so now I can add exponentially more square footage without my price going up. And now all of a sudden the margin is back to be able to do these big projects.
Well, and not to mention, so the light bulb goes off. Now you have this new way, this new vertical to continue flipping in Germantown. But the other added benefit is you have a lot of older, not necessarily older like in age, but investors that were there before you that are now saying Germantown's dead, and they're on the way out. And like, so your competition is dwindling and going away because they're not as creative as you are, basically.
The competition is there though. Anytime if you see it, if a house,
It's true.
if a house gets listed down there, the very first day you will see probably the same. I used to run into Bobby Pinkston twice a week in a house.
Never heard of him.
I would always run into him.
But the truth is, you're competing with a lot of people that are failing to make money at the old way. The additional effort, and I think what I want to zero in on here, and you didn't even say it all. I mean, he rewires the entire house. He replumbs the entire house.
It's like rebuilding it. Yeah.
He pulls down a lot of framing. He pulls down all the old plaster. He goes back with all new baseboards, all new flooring, new subflooring in a lot of cases. He's rebuilding an entire house.
Yeah.
And the added effort creates the points of differentiation. That's what I want to focus in on here, because if there is a market, and I think probably what you saw and what others saw, the commercial investment, obviously, but the area is surrounded by homes that are 2 and 3 times even what these homes are bringing now. So proximity to the things that the people want that buy those $500,000 homes will get them to buy $300,000 homes in an area that's virtually the same if you deliver the product. And so it's really kind of a global lesson here, not just a house flipping lesson. Something that can be attributed to almost anything.
Well, yeah, and this is applicable places other than Germantown.
It's applicable anywhere in flipping. It's applicable in rentals. It's also applicable in representing buyers and sellers. Those willing to put forth effort that no one else is willing to put forth find very little competition. So he says there's competition, but he can afford to pay more because he has better margins. And when they start to flame out, well, then the prices will back down, and he'll be the one that gets the benefit of that in terms of margin on that too.
Yeah, with a slew of contractors that know exactly what you want and how you want it done because they have experience working with you on 6 different projects. And so you've got all of these things that are constantly working in your favor because you were just like the first one there. Not the first one there, but the first one there doing the things that you're doing.
I don't know anybody doing 6 at a time the way he does it.
I do like seeing your Instagram stories and seeing a house without a roof. It's one of the most peculiar things I've ever seen.
Or no walls.
It snowed in there. I went in there yesterday morning, and there's snow all in the soon-to-be kitchen. So
incredible.
It is what it is. Okay, so let me ask you this. We're not going to keep you too much longer, but this is a real estate agent show. Okay, we are talking to real estate agents. That's who our audience is. So let me ask you this, and I'm gonna pretend like we haven't already talked about this today. But what I'd like to know is, for a guy that has sold houses the regular old way, started off like so many of us started off, just trying to find a way, who has had some success at that and now found a niche. That's a rich word, by the way. Mm-hmm. It's found a niche. You could say niche, and it's less rich, but I prefer niche.
Riche.
Sorry. It's riche. God, Gabe. Bad jokes. Okay.
I thought it was pretty good.
Anyway.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Where are you taking this? Where's it headed? Okay? And how far can it go?
Well, I'll tell you, it started off with me investing because that was what I enjoyed doing, and I first got a real estate license because my wife and I bought one rental property, and I said, I could have just, kept a couple $1,000s there. And then it kind of snowballed, and so now I have marketed all of this to where now, I guess this is how it ties into for agents, is that I enjoy this aspect of the business, and so I do a lot of videos. I market this stuff every day that I'm doing, and now investors, people who want to invest, have started to reach out to me. And they're my favorite type of clients because it's more about if the numbers work than finding the perfect home and
less
the
emotional.
Emotion. Yes, much less emotional, and it is
transactional.
Are you saying you're not a sensitive guy? You can't handle the emotions?
I'm super sensitive, but I do. I like this. I like it. It's a business, and I think that Jay Pitts once said that working with investors is like printing your own checks up, because all you got to do
I did say that.
when it's time to sell a house, you just go find one.
Go find a deal.
Find something where the numbers work.
Yep.
And then call someone, tell them to buy it. And it I mean, it's very
That's how it goes.
simplified, but
Or by yourself.
and so
Yeah.
what I did is just or buy it yourself, which is the end game, is to have enough that you just buy them all. But
Okay, so what is the end game? Where are we going? I asked you that, and you kind of dodged that piece.
yeah, I would eventually want to be somebody that just has maybe 100 rentals or something like that, and then the flips. I don't look at flipping as more of a means to an end right now, and then it to help me build cash to buy rentals. And then eventually, once I think I'll always do the flips because it's so fun. I am more hands-on and I enjoy it.
It's a creative
and
process
so
too.
Eventually though, I think that the flips will I would slow down, just have a couple that I was working on, and focus on building the rental portfolio.
Okay.
And I've always said if you can make money right now in investing, then eventually the market will turn a little bit and you probably make a lot of money investing.
So let me ask you this. What's the next neighborhood?
Well, I don't know if it counts, but it's really spreading into Shelby Park and that area. It's kind of the same area. We've got one right now on Clay, which is directly across from Shelby Park, and so I've been paying attention to what happens. You've got Ormsby right down there, and it's just kind of watching what happens with those
Street.
Camp and Ormsby, south of the park, and then so I think that before I even start really what's the next neighborhood, it's kind of the same neighborhood. It just moves a little bit.
Yeah.
Growing.
And it's kind of hard to it's hard for me to do the flips that I want to do there, because I do like to do all new plumbing. I like to do all rewire it, and that type of stuff is expensive.
Yeah.
And so since they don't have the
margin,
the resale can't get as high, no matter how nice you might make it.
It's the same house. It's just 3 blocks away, and it's not quite as gentrified.
It's not getting the numbers yet.
And so I do like the fact that rather than going in and fixing what I have to fix, we go in and plaster that didn't look that bad. We just went ahead and tore it all down.
Yeah.
And then because I haven't went into any of these houses and not found a bunch of rotted wood somewhere.
Sure.
And in houses that you wouldn't have known it, because it was actually, the one on Caldwell, people were living in it, and it actually looked pretty nice inside. Somebody could have bought it and just lived in it. And we, once we start tearing it all out, now I had floor joists in the back that had completely rotted through.
Yeah.
But they had so many layers of flooring, you couldn't even feel it.
Yeah.
And so once we started tearing all that out, well then, and
Now
then,
you're
and
gonna
then
fix
you
it.
have the confidence that when you do sell to somebody, you're putting a good product out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, not just that. The people that are coming to look at your flip house are probably looking at a bunch of flipped houses in the area, and they're comparing them all apples to apples, right? So when they see a house where there's like nice fixtures and it's that cool gray that every flip house is, but they can tell this didn't get replaced, this got left. In their head, they're like, this was a cost thing. Like they just didn't want to pay to fix this. And then they walk in a house where even though the floors might have been okay, they were still fixed, or, like different joists, different walls, like the plaster walls you're talking about. When they see everything was done, they're like, this person really paid attention and did all of it. And that might be the tiny little, determining factor. Because a lot of those houses, I mean, even no matter how creative you are, they're going to be pretty similar to someone looking out there.
Yeah.
If they're all the same style, too.
Well, I'd probably take it a step further, and maybe Ryan's not really ready to convey this amount of confidence, but I think he could. I think you probably will end up, if you're not already, and maybe you kind of are with, stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit on what was the one you said a minute ago? Caldwell? Not Caldwell.
Camp.
Not Camp. We've got one on Camp. What do you?
Caldwell
Clay.
like
Clay.
All these
So you're stepping outside your comfort zone a little bit on Clay, right? I mean, it's just a little
talking
bit.
about area-wise?
Yeah, location-wise, like in terms of like resale potential and all that. But here's where I'm going with this. There's a model here. Okay? There's a model. So you weren't the first one to flip houses in Germantown. Prices doubled, and I mean, like the houses you're buying now are double what I used to sell them for. Okay? Double. From 50 to 110 or more. Okay? So you didn't prove the model, right, of flipping in Germantown. What he proved was large-scale additions and complete renos at a higher price point per square foot was a thing. Okay, and maybe your Shelby Park, doesn't, your Smoketown in Shelby Park doesn't draw what Germantown does on the other side of the tracks.
Not this year.
Not now, not this second, but I bet it draws more than you think. And I bet the buyers will see the value. And I think slowly but surely it becomes more and more viable. So I don't know that I would wait on starting that trend. Like, you could set the trend here. And there's been people flipping houses. Phil flipped one, in Smoketown 3 years ago. Okay, it didn't go as well as he would have liked. I bet he wished at this moment, he's watching, and he said it was time to mute Gabe Pruitt. I wish he had that house right now. I think that was in response to the Reach comment.
He just commented again, too.
Shelby Park, not the same as Germantown. I know that, Phil. But here's my point. My point is they're similar, okay? And that house today would bring a lot more money than it did 3 years ago. He was a little bit ahead of the game. He heard me saying the same thing at that point, and it was more his idea. And he bought a house for $6,000. He bought that house for I don't know. He's going to correct me probably in the comments here, but the buyers weren't quite ready for it, and maybe they're not quite ready for what you are, but it won't be long, and you're on to something.
I see just being down in the area all the time. I think Shelby Park is happening pretty quickly, and there would be a great spot right now you could go buy something and just hang on to it for a couple years, rent it out.
Yeah.
Let it pay its own bills, and then in a couple years, whenever it is,
see what happens,
worth a couple hundred a square foot, then you could,
there are
clean
still
it up,
there are still parts, and I went here and I asked and you wouldn't give it to me. Like, you don't know the next neighborhood other than right next to Germantown. Like, you can't
Germantown Plus.
You can't. I mean, other than just expanding the boundaries, you're not going to give me a prognosis. You're not going to give me like a hypothesis.
I don't know. It's hard to
Just
say.
tell-
I mean,
You're not in
so
on it?
I have investors that like to buy over in Churchill Downs neighborhood,
Of course.
and it has obviously, traditionally been a really great spot to rent. I question if that might start. I think that, oddly enough, I think Airbnb is something that is going to help that neighborhood turn into more of an area where people might buy really nice houses and live. And I think that because in order to make money on Airbnb, your house has to be really, really nice.
Well, that would be nice because I own a lot of real estate over there.
Yeah, well, I'm saying this for you. No, I think that it could. I don't know that it will. I think that it could because, if I've got a street where, there's 2 or 3 Airbnbs over there, well, those houses have to be really, really nice, interior and exterior.
Yeah.
And so then and that also increases the property value based off of what kind of income.
Forces the neighbors to do the same thing.
Yeah, forces the neighbors to do the same thing or
sell to somebody who will do it.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, you've got 4 houses, 5 houses on the street that are completely renovated and really nice. Well, now maybe this person says, I'll buy this one and I'm going to sell it for, and you know how the prices step up and up and up. And so I think that could be an area. Obviously, there's only going to be more demand for the short-term rentals and really nice houses over there if gambling starts to happen over there where they're building that big hotel and stuff.
I noticed.
And I don't think that the hotel will slow down Airbnb either because there are just some people that would rather have a house than a hotel.
Prove the concept.
Absolutely.
I mean, I couldn't tell you how privatized campus housing has impacted rents in that area. So when students became, willing, or students' parents became willing to pay more for on-campus housing, it bolstered the price of rental property in the immediate vicinity. It's part of the reason why places like, Wilder Park and Wyandotte and neighborhoods like that were made possible. Like, east of Crittenden. I mean, I own a house on Wainwright Avenue. Okay. I paid $29,000 for this house. Okay. It's not in fantastic shape and it rents for $850 a month. We pulled up the comps on it. I could probably get $150 for it. And it's not in fantastic shape, but it's half a block from a $50 million privatized campus housing project, not project, but you know what I mean? Like, so all this stuff has an impact. I get it. You don't want to go on record. Before we
You just need a decoy answer when people like Jay ask you for your secret neighborhoods.
Oklahona's
happening right
before we go, Oklahoma is happening actually. Before we go, okay, I know you got a lot of experience in Portland. Flipping in Germantown has been likened early on, has been likened to where Portland is today. I know a lot of people have put a lot of money in Portland. Do you ever see that happening in Portland?
The proximity to downtown, I think that a lot of it is spurred by your your downtown. Your
Brian-
downtown.
Brian Holder likes your
the
mohawk.
more and more downtown comes up, I think that all of these neighborhoods, the biggest thing that I hear from people that are looking in the Germantown, Shelby Park area is they want to be close to downtown because we have so much. Since I've been back here, the downtown area has changed so much.
Lots, yeah.
And so the more it does, you're going to run, even if we keep spreading from Germantown to Shelby Park to Smoketown, well, now we've run out of houses over there. And so it makes sense that it has to go somewhere else. And I think that the houses are very similar. I have a friend, and he is an older guy, probably 60, and he has been buying and selling and renting out old Germantown houses since the mid-'70s or '80s. He talked about buying those houses in the single digits.
Wait, he's in Germantown or Portland?
Germantown.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's a good
so
person to know.
This guy's So he's been buying and selling. He said I bought a lot of these houses in single digits, and he just can't believe what we're doing. And this guy owns maybe 50 houses down there, and mostly in the same area. He owns about 50 houses, and he drives like a 1990 Toyota, and he goes down there to work on houses every day in his overalls, and like he just does his thing. But
What's his name? I'm joking.
but.
No, you don't need to. You don't need to put.
But
his name
I mean,
out. I'm just joking.
it's funny because he reminds me a lot. You kind of compare Germantown and Portland, so he reminds me very much of my wife's grandfather, who got us started in real estate. Who, was born and grew up in Portland, and then the very first place he bought was a duplex. He rented one side, lived the other, and then bought and rented those houses out for years and years and years. And the same thing, he bought houses for I mean, I bought one for $8,000 before with somebody in it, and in good shape.
Well, and I mean that. By the way, Bigger Pockets calls that house hacking, and so just to illustrate the point that was a thing well before Bigger Pockets existed, these are real estate fundamentals that you've learned clearly from people that have had an impact on your career, right? But fundamentals, right? Buy cheap, fix up, sell for market value. Buy property that yields positive cash flow, retire debt quick. Those kind of concepts never go out of style, right? So, spotting, it's a luxury to be able to spot a good area or spot a market dynamic like you clearly have, and I don't know if you intended to do it or not, but I think everyone recognizes what you're doing is pretty cool. Some would say it's rich.
The flipping, the flipping is cool, but it's funny. That's what everyone talks about. But then whenever I try to encourage them to get rental properties because
flipping's just
they don't
sexier.
And it's funny is that I do so much marketing about that. I've had people ask me like, "Oh, do you work with buyers and sellers? Do you do any other real estate?" Because
you just sell houses?
I focus on
Yes, I do.
Well, I had somebody this morning at Honey Brothers say, "Are you just doing your flips now? Or are you selling real estate?" And I was like, "Yeah."
At least you get people asking. That's the best problem to have.
But to me, I think, like I said, the end game is to use the flips as a means to an end to raise the cash to be able to buy the rentals, and the very much less sexy but long-term play. When you talk to all these old guys,
the rich life.
When you talk to these old guys that have been doing it for years and years, not a one of them talks about the 15 or 20 or 30 they made off selling a house. It's how many houses do they have right now?
Yeah.
And how many vacations are they taking this year?
It is pretty sexy to think back 8 or 10 years later what you paid for something and think about what you could sell it for now. Because, I've got houses I bought in 2010, 2011, 2012, and I look back now and I think pretty excited about the fact that I made that decision. And so it's not sexy now, but it gets sexy. Just give it some time.
That's the moral of the story. Well, that's about all the time we've got I could let you guys go, I know, for the rest of the day talking about this type of stuff. But are there any parting thoughts that you want to give to listeners, other agents, maybe that want to follow in your footsteps? What's the one thing you would part with?
Other agents, if you're out there, first, I think you should invest on your own. I think that gives you some skin in the game. And that, I think it gives you more credibility for regular consumers. But it's great to work with investors, and I think that as a market turns, maybe slower eventually at some point, I don't know when, but if you have a good crew of investors, then you're going to have kind of a steady business there. And so educate yourself on investing, and then market the fact that you are educated on it and try to draw some people in.
Yep.
Absolutely agree.
Yep.
I'm at a loss.
Yes,
He said it. He
something
said
that's
it
been
perfect.
said here a lot, and that might be what the show is really about. At its core, is start investing if you're an agent. So that's what
Go
most of
figure.
these episodes
Go
are about.
figure. Like, I can't make the point any better. I have to bring on somebody like Ryan to do it for me.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening to this and you're watching live right now in our, resource, Real Talk About Louisville Real Estate Facebook group, you can always ask Ryan a question. He's a member of the group, and he'll probably get back to you if he's not too busy. If you're just listening to this the next week, though, and you want to be in the group, make sure to check us out on Facebook. It's a private group, so reach out to us if you want to be invited to watch live episodes. We'll make sure that you get invited. Other than that, I think that's all we got for today. Real Talk About Louisville Real Estate here on Resource. I'm Gabe Pruitt for Jay Pitts. We'll see you guys next time.
See you, folks.